And like, even if the situation is not the way you want it, you have to like really forget about those things and push forward with the best you can. And it pays off, because I think that's what builds a brand, and that's what builds you a good name.
Hi, I'm Jana Croce, and this is Find Your Dolce, the new podcast where we explore joyful living and how to create your Dolce Vita life. I'm so excited that you're here. Thanks for joining. Let's get started. Hello and welcome. Today we're talking to Italian musician Claudio Santaluce. I am so excited to have Claudio on the podcast. We go way back, and I've been watching him perform since he was a little boy. We have so many memories: Taste of Little Italy Festival, various events around the Toronto area. And Claudio, it's been such a joy to see you have so much success in your career. So tell us, Claudio, how did it all get started? And welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I started playing the Organetto when I was 7 years old. The reason I started was we'd spend a lot of summers in Italy, because we still had a house there. And also my dad was still very attached to, Italy and his town specifically. He moved to Canada when he was 20. So we spent summers there. And my zitore was the guy there that would be playing the Organetto every night. And people would be around him singing and dancing, and he was a party starter. He was the life of every party. And I told my dad, I want to be like Zito. So while we were there on a vacation, we picked up an Organetto. And then back then there wasn't the internet and to find, instructors or anything. And he found a teacher, Tony Flocco, who was in Richmond Hill. And I started taking lessons. And that's kind of the way it started. I was 7 years old.
Wow, that's really cool. And please let us know, because you say organetto. So there is a distinct difference. I think a lot of people say, oh, there's Claudio, he plays the accordion, but it's not exactly an accordion. It's very different. So maybe you can explain a little bit.
Yeah, so the organetto is actually still considered a type of accordion. It's in English, it would be the diatonic accordion, which means it's only in one key. The fisarmonica usually has a piano key on the right side, and 120 basses on the left side. And the main difference between the organetto and the fisarmonica is when you're hitting one button, with the fisarmonica, whether you're opening or closing, it has the same sound. With the organetto, if you hit one button and you open, it's one sound. And when you close it, it's a different sound. So that's the main difference. And the organetto was used more so for folklore and things like tarantellas and waltzes and polkas and songs that, in the country they would be singing. It's very similar to like the harmonica, for example, but it's like, the Italian version of the harmonica.
Okay, very cool. And, you mentioned the folklore and whatnot. And of course, like Italy, Italy has such a beautiful relationship with art, music. How did that influence you, this whole Italian connection with that and just the mindset around it?
Well, like, we were raised in a very, very Italian household, so we would only speak Italian here. Like, even I remember my mom always saying that when my brother went to junior kindergarten, there was their first child went to junior kindergarten not speaking any English. We only spoke Italian, which, it seems a little bit weird, but I think it's like, culturally appropriate, because, when we were raised, everything was Italian, much different. Like, my dad moved here when he was 20, and he was still so attached to his Italian culture and the things that they would do and the language. And yeah.
You know what? I totally understand. My sister was in the same boat. She also went to kindergarten speaking only Italian. And, I agree. I grew up in a very similar bubble, I call it, which was very nice, and I think maybe that's why you and I and many others are so connected. It's a gift that our parents gave us, and it's a pleasure to continue. And, you do continue it so well. You play such beautiful traditional songs and, new ones too. You put your own twist on things. But I do have to ask, what are your favorite songs to play? Are there any favorites of the Italian traditional ones?
Have any like particular favorite ones? I'm like, oh yes, I get to play this song. But like, I go through phases. So like, I'm always looking, like, I'm always learning new songs, and I'm always, doing my own renditions of these old songs. So like, for example, like, one that I just learned and I never really paid attention to was Zum Paninella is a song. And I just heard it this year when I was in Italy. And I'm the kind of guy that I go through phases where, like, if I like a song, I'll just like Like I dig into it. Like it's one song at a time. I dig into it and I really get attached to that one song. And that's it. That's kind of the way it works.
And I can understand that because I can see how when you play, you really are sort of putting your own spin on it sometimes. You like to put the modernization to it. So, why do you like to do that? Where does that come from?
So like my music is basically like it represents kind of the way my personality, the way I am, like the way I like music. I'm only like releasing things that are representation of what I do. Like I'm not, trying to copy or like, in most cases I am it's just the sound that I create is very like naturally done. So like I like a heavy drum beat and even the chords that are, on these songs, I like doing a little bit of chord substitution to change, the original chords. And the arrangement is all honestly things that are in my mind or as I'm playing those songs, they come out naturally. I think that's what makes me so passionate about it. I like playing my songs because they're the way that I like them. So, and I'm really lucky that that resonated with people as well. Um, I'm happy that, I'm taking some of these old songs that haven't been redone or songs that are really, really old. Like even the instrumental to some of these songs are very archaic, beautifully archaic. But and I just add my own twist to it. And that's what makes me so passionate about it because, I'm just taking songs that I like and doing my own renditions of them the way I like them. So yeah.
I think that's what makes us such a fan of you, Claudio, because you do have a distinct sound. And, I think it also represents a little bit of being Italian Canadian, right? Because you have different influences that are touching upon you and you're bringing those in. And, we're all the better for it, right? We enjoy. Now, growing up, I'm sure you did find other interests that you like. Was there ever a time that you thought, you know what, I kind of want to take a break from the organetto? Maybe I don't want to continue it. If that did happen, maybe how did you pull through that? Or maybe it didn't happen at all. What do you
So
think?
it was always a struggle in general because, I started performing and going out and performing when I was 8. And I think it was very tough on my dad and my mom to be able to get me ready to go out. And it's the kind of thing that like, I'd rather be doing a lot of other things as a kid sometimes. Like I was passionate about music, but on sometimes I didn't want to go and play, and sometimes I didn't want to do this, and there's sometimes I want to quit. I was getting made fun of at school or whatever, but like my dad found a good way of like keeping me engaged and keeping me looking forward to the next thing, the next step. And now that I'm a father, I see the sacrifices that he did and like how he kind of like, it was always the negotiations with my dad. So, there's things I wanted to do and there's things that he wanted me to do. And we would always be negotiating. And he just found a way of keeping me engaged. And that's what kept me going really until the point that I realized that, this is the best thing I could be doing. And I am so happy to be doing it. Because sometimes when you're a kid, you don't realize those things. And, I'm so grateful that I kept with it because, this is my livelihood now. This is what I do. And I'm happy doing it. And not everyone is lucky enough to be able to do this as a career. And I'm really, really grateful and I appreciate it.
Yes, thank your parents, right? It's like listen to your parents. I'm going through that myself with my own kids. You always try to guide them in the best way. And, thanks to your father for encouraging you, of course, because again, now we're all benefiting from the beautiful music that you perform. So that's amazing. And
He was like my manager. He was like he had the vision of what this could potentially be one day, or I'm not sure what, he was thinking. He's not around anymore. But
oh, okay. I
yeah, he
didn't know that.
passed away
All right.
11 years ago. Uh, but he was like the biggest fan and like even when people had like they're like why are you doing this? Like why are you putting so much time into this and stuff like that? He had an appreciation for music and a passion for music without being a musician. And, you know, and looking back now, it's taught me so many things about, you know, first of all, how to be a really good father, because he was an amazing dad. So I
You know,
learned so much from him that way. And especially about hard work and like little things that are part of music that people don't realize. Like, if you're in the music business, there's so many things about, being on time and like, being consistent and like always trying your best. And like, even if the situation is not the way you want it, you have to like really forget about those things and push forward with the best you can. And, it pays off because I think that's what builds, a brand, and that's what builds you a good name. So I'm lucky he taught me those things, not only about music, but about business as well.
Yes, 100%. And, I think that it's actually really beautiful because, as you said, he's no longer here, but he is very much alive in what you're doing. So it's a beautiful tribute that you get to pay to him every time you play.
Mhm.
So that's really nice. And you did take it seriously. You studied music. You earned your Bachelor of Applied Music Contemporary Music degree, and you majored in drums and percussion. So, I guess, was it that continued push of your parents that were basically telling you this is a good path? Is that why you chose to study it as well?
Well, like what he said? He always told me that, like, and my mom as well, if you enjoy doing something and you're really good at it and like, you're passionate about it, it can be a career. And his main thing was, although like indirectly, I got a degree to study music, and indirectly I'm not really, that degree doesn't really mean much in the music world. Whether you have a degree or not, it doesn't mean that you're good, or it doesn't mean that you're going to be, successful or busy. But for him, it was more so like, you know, go through those steps. It's going to teach you other things. You're going to do a 4-year program, and you might not use that degree, but it's always good to have. And who knows what else you will learn from those experiences. And he was absolutely right, because I studied drums, and indirectly, I think number one, it affected my, like, I studied jazz as well, and I think indirectly it kind of affected my sound. Number one, and number two, it taught me so many things about, music, and, working with others and stuff like that as well. That, now I realize, I've been out of school for like 12 years, but now I realize, those things that I did.
Think it's like your parents said, when you have that thing that you love, if you go full force with it, then you can really do something properly with it. And like you said, even though the degree doesn't necessarily make sure that you're going to be successful, you're giving yourself that background, that extra knowledge to just help you out in that field. So never wasted, right? Education's never wasted. Now, there's a famous phrase, and I think that you would appreciate it. They say music is life. So would you agree? I think I would say yes, but maybe why?
100% for us, like my family right now. I have 2 kids, Leo and Lily, and my wife. We all love music. So music for us, like it's, I don't know if other families are like this, because my family was not like that. Like, all we do is listen to music, and like when we're in the car, we're choosing songs, we're singing to them. Like, it's very much of what we do. And I mentioned this before, like I went to my son's class to do a presentation for like people that are in the community and do things for the community and stuff. And like, I didn't really practice what I was gonna say, but when I was doing the presentation, something came to me, and what it was I didn't choose music, music chose me. And like, for me, like, I never thought that I was going to be a musician in my life. I had never had those ideas. Never said, "Oh, I'm going to be a musician when I grow up." Like, I never ever thought that. So that's why I think that it chose me, because you know um, one thing leads to another, and it kind of fell in my lap. And that's kind of the way I feel about it.
100% agree. Because, it's funny. I also grew up in a house with music, yes, but it wasn't as intense as I feel it, like in the sense that my parents, they would always have it around and they would talk to us about it. But, I totally understand the thing of being attached to music and it choosing you. I love that because I agree, even sometimes when you take a break from it, like I did, I kind of took a break, it finds its way back and you can't really let go. So I think, like you said, sometimes things choose you. And yeah, it's pretty powerful.
Hmm.
So I like your little version of that. That's
Hmm.
cool. And when did obviously using music, you impact a lot of people, as we're saying. And so when did you realize that your music was really resonating with people?
Well, I started playing in a restaurant when I was 8, and I know that the music was an important part of that, but I think the reason I was doing well as a kid is, first of all, the restaurant business was completely different when I was doing it. And people would go to a restaurant and like it was a loud environment. People were there for a good time. They used to be smoking in a restaurant. So people would have dinner, they'd, start smoking, start drinking. It was a completely different dynamic. So although I think it was part of the music, I think I was lucky to be part of a scene in which, like people would just, I would be that token kid playing the accordion in a restaurant on a Friday night or Saturday night, and people like that. And that was one part of it that I feel was like accessible for everybody, especially people that were not Italian, accessing like being accessible, like having access to Italian music. But when I started doing festivals, and doing like performances like like St. Clair or College Street or any other festivals they used to do the Woodbridge Italian Festival and stuff like that. I realized like that my music had a larger impact because people would be dancing and having a great time and then coming up to me and telling me how they used to sing these songs with their kids or whatever. And the same thing happens now where I'm playing my music and people are coming up to me saying, I remember listening to these songs as a kid with my parents, and I haven't heard them in forever. And I love to make that, I love to have that effect on people and to bring back those beautiful memories. Maybe there's a song that reminds them of a particular moment in their life with, and maybe brings them back with people that maybe they lost or beautiful times in their life that they remember. So I love to be part of that.
That's wonderful. And you are a part of a lot of celebrations. You've done weddings and, different functions, as we said. You've done also charitable work. You've played at senior citizens' homes. So, that's quite the achievement. And also, you've recorded 7 successful albums. So, congrats. That's another huge achievement. And one amazing thing that you've also done, one of the many amazing things that you've done, is you were awarded in 2008 the Young Achievement Award by the National Congress of Italian Canadians. So tell us, how did it feel to receive that honor?
It was great. Like I like I didn't really apply or anything. Like it's not the kind of word that I was even looking to get or anything. But it was just honestly beautiful to be recognized. It's kind of like you do all these things and sometimes you're recognized for this stuff, and it's a beautiful indication that maybe what you're doing is appreciated by people, and then it kind of gives me the realization that yes, I am maintaining Italian culture, and I'm doing it in a unique way, and that's kind of what it did for me, just to show me that I am appreciated, which is great.
It's always nice, right? Like you said, you're not necessarily looking for it, but it
Yeah,
obviously helps to, give you that pat on the shoulder, right?
yeah.
Like you're doing a good job.
Yeah. For
um,
me, honestly, when I'm performing, those moments that I'm performing, and like the little things, like I could be playing a small, 90th birthday party, and it could be 25 people in the room, and the person that's celebrating their birthday, they are so ecstatic that I'm there, and they love them, like even if they don't know who I am, but they just love that I'm there for their day. And these for me are the real um acknowledgments that I love to have, because those are like in the moment it's so passionate and so beautiful, and I like to see that. So
Yeah, and that brings another thing to mind. You're talking about the moment, right? So, in the moment, that's so special. And I'm a big fan of live music. I always talk about how important it is. I'll never forget, like, Zucchero. I wasn't a huge fan of his studio work. I was kind of like, right? And then I got the chance to see him live, and it changed everything. I was like,
mhm.
whoa, this guy is an amazing musician, amazing performer. So, back to your point of these connections that you make at these different performances, I think that's so important. Like, I'm happy you mentioned that. Maybe you could, explain that a little bit more, that feeling that you get when you have that connection.
Yeah, like I would love to be performing more with a band or like live musicians. Fortunately for what I do, it's not like that. I do get the opportunity to perform with people a lot, but not as much as I'd like, because even studying when I was in college, being able to play with musicians is a different thing, and I do miss that. There's some few guys that I play with like Carlo Coppola or Frank Cimino. And when we're doing stuff together, like it just things happen in like spontaneously, which is, really, really nice. Like things that would never happen, you know, otherwise in those moments, So that's what's beautiful about live music. And, obviously if the musicians are talented and they have, a lot of skill or they're able to read an audience, it's something unique that, when you're doing things and you're trying to do the best performance for those particular people, things just happen spontaneously and like, it's almost like magic sometimes.
You just said the word that I always say. I was going to say it here too. I was like, it's magic. That's the only
Mhm,
way I can describe it. It really is magic. So
mhm.
I love that. Yeah, that's pretty cool. You recently just had a documentary made about you, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more. It was called Una Tarantella Canadese con Claudio Santaluce. So this is another proud moment for you and your family, of course. And what was it like for you and even your family to see your musical journey on the big screen?
It was amazing. I was really happy with that. And the only thing I wish is it was filmed during COVID, which was a very tough time to do a documentary like that because at that time I wasn't really performing out and about. There was no events happening. And like these guys did such a great job of capturing the essence of what I do. I just wish that it was filmed during times where I'm performing, like at festivals and amazing events where they can actually, see the people's reactions to my music, like firsthand and, record those reactions. But I thought it was a great documentary. And yeah, they really captured the essence of what I was trying to do and, my story. And it's really nice to, have like even the fact that they came up to me and were interested in my story was amazing because like I said, it shows that people appreciate what I do, and sometimes sometimes I'm not sure whether it's received well or not, and seeing something like that always gives you a great feeling of appreciation.
I think that goes hand in hand when you do something like music, right? And some sort of art. You're putting yourself out there. So you never really know, you hope it's received well, but you never really know. So that of course is a nice thing to have. Was there a key aspect in the documentary, like maybe a key moment in the documentary that you were excited about that got shared?
I like that they talked to my kids and they talked to my wife and my mom. For me, like my most favorite thing is and the thing that I want people to know about the most is my father. Like, and I know they talked about him a lot, and that's the biggest thing for me because yes, I'm Claudio. I'm the guy that performs. I'm everything, but if it wasn't for him, this would not have happened, and it wouldn't. Probably wouldn't have been around. I probably would have quit a long time ago, or I would never have this opportunity. So, for me, that's the biggest thing, and I'm glad that they outline, what effects he had on me, and his contribution to it, because really it was all because of him. So.
Wow, that's really beautiful. You talked a little bit about discipline before, and I know you said like your parents helped to instill that, especially your father. What does discipline look like for you? Maybe you could explain that, especially as an artist, because hopefully we can help others. Maybe they're at the point where they're like, "Oh, I don't know if I want to continue," but what are some things that helped you?
For me, with the Organetto, discipline has nothing to do with practicing because I never ever practiced the Organetto. I never. And I think that's partially why I started performing at such a young age because I didn't want to practice. And that's why I started performing in the restaurant because that's what made me want to play. And that's what made me want to practice. But my practicing was, in the restaurant performing for people. But discipline for me is more so like I'm not like a super organized person, but I just like I'm disciplined enough to be organized because I know this is important to people. Like when I'm scheduling my events and my gigs. So number one, like I'm on time. For me, that's discipline. Like being able to uh, I've been doing this for 30 years, and like I'm on time. I'm usually early, and I always show up. So I don't cancel events. Not that I've never canceled events, um, but if I do, it's it's a big reason. Like I don't just if I'm not feeling well, I no, I kind of my discipline for me is pushing through and like doing your job and finding a way to get by. Sometimes on a weekend I'll be super sick and I'll just you know say, okay, listen, I need to do this. So how can I best do this? And I always find a way.
Yeah, no, you're dedicated, right? Dedicated
Yeah,
to
I
the
think
craft.
it might not be
Yeah.
discipline. Maybe it's more dedication, I guess. Um, but like, I think it's discipline to be able to like, like I can easily say, oh, I can't come perform for you today because of this or because of that. But for me, it's like my discipline is like, no, they've hired me for this, and I promised them that I'd be there. And when I give someone my word, I'm gonna be there. So for me, that's kind of the way I see discipline as well.
Yeah, for sure. You told us that you basically have had so many cool, amazing experiences. What are some of the top experiences you've had on this musical journey?
I think the most like memorable experiences are ones that are like, very unique. So like I performed in my mom's town and my dad's town in Italy. And those were both beautiful, beautiful moments that I got to perform. And like some of my relatives in Italy never really got to see, they see me now on Instagram and stuff like that, but they never got to see it firsthand. And for me, that was huge because, like the people in Italy that are my family and friends are like they're a big part of the reason that I do what I do. And, they've all contributed somehow. I have a zio in Italy, and he's not actually a zio, but I call him zio because it's respectful. Um, his name is Angelo Strollo. And he coordinated everything for me, and this is a huge moment for me because I was recording albums and I want to go to Italy to record some of my albums, and I didn't have anyone in Italy that I knew that I could trust. He was that person for me. So on my albums it says Coordinatore Angelo Strollo because he was really the coordinator that coordinated me being able to go to Italy and record some albums, and he found me all the contacts and did all the work for me. But yeah, going to that, these unique performances that I've had, either in my parents' towns or even things like performing on St. Clair for the World Cup. These are things that are really memorable for me, for sure, by far.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. You're part of a cultural moment at that point, right? And going back to this gentleman who helped you, I love that you credited him because that's a big thing. Like there sometimes we can try really hard to do things and the talent is there and everything works, but you do have to sort of have that help sometimes, right? Things have to fall into place. So he was that person that helped it all fall into place. So that's really beautiful and I'm glad you got to do that. I'm sure though, as much as things have gone very well, obviously, there have been, I'm sure, obstacles. You did kind of mention a few along the way. And how have you pulled through those times where you maybe had something that kind of was getting in the way of maybe a performance or not even just doing this whole career? Have you ever had to sort of pull yourself out of a, you know, sort of negative space?
Yeah, for sure. So like, and I like this is something that's fairly recent, but when it was coming like right before COVID happened, I was doing a lot of events, and I wasn't really super inspired or like 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 I was kind of getting tired of going out every weekend and performing. It felt like a grind, and I'm not sure what the reason was really. But when COVID happened and I had it, like a year of not performing at all, that really gave me a really great understanding of what it is that I do and a great appreciation of what I do. And that was probably the biggest change for me. The way I approach it now is much different than I did before 2020. Um, because like I'm really, really like I'm really stoked. It's a much different thing, and I needed that. I think I needed that moment to happen for me to actually realize how lucky I am to be doing this. And thank goodness it happened because, maybe I wouldn't be taking as many events, or maybe I would be tired of doing it. Um, but I needed that break and I needed that realization for sure.
Yeah. And, I think that happens to everyone, right? Like, I think you reach a point where you're just sort of questioning, like, is this what I want to continue doing? So, and I'm glad that that's a positive thing that you got from COVID. COVID was a really difficult time. So it's pretty cool that it gave you that. And, I think too, this goes for anyone who's sort of going through that hard time. And, maybe again, you can sort of give some advice for someone who maybe is not so sure? Because you discovered your passion at a really young age. And even you mentioned it was sort of like this struggle sometimes, right? So, maybe for someone who feels disconnected, maybe is there something that you can offer them, some sort of insight?
It's hard to say, but I think in general, like if you look at things in a macro, like on a macro scale, not a micro scale, then you might realize, um, you know, things might come to you differently. Because a lot of times, we're doing these things and we're stuck in our ways and we're in a little bit of a rat race. And I think if you pull out and you look at the big picture, that will help you, realize certain things, or I don't know, I'm not sure. But
Yeah, no, I think
that's what I feel.
that's a yeah, I think that that's a great answer, I think that, it's true. It's like you said, you were sort of taken out of it for a little while. You sort of had to, you know, I guess, look at everything going on in your life and evaluate things differently. So I think you're right. I think maybe sometimes it's just looking at it from a different perspective. And, now you're picking up your organetto 30 years later. Tell us, how does that feel? And what does picking that instrument up represent to you all these years later?
You know what? It's hard to explain it, but it feels very natural. Like when I play the organetto, like it doesn't feel like I'm doing something. And I know it sounds weird, but like, yeah, when I pick it up, it feels like it's part of me. Like when I have to play, it's like I don't think about playing. And it's a really weird thing to explain. It's almost like when you're driving, you're not thinking about exactly the way you're doing your motions, or you're kind of just it just happens. And it's a similar thing with an instrument. And when you get to that level where like you don't have to really think about every single note that you're playing, or you don't like, one of the biggest hurdles is mistakes. So as a young musician, you think about mistakes, and I don't think really about mistakes anymore. Like I don't believe in mistakes, because I'll play the same thing many different ways. And if it has a note that doesn't sound that great, okay, that's probably a mistake. But I don't really, it doesn't bother me anymore if I still make mistakes, and I still do things differently than I did or the way they're supposed to be. But I've gotten past that. I don't think about that anymore. So like picking up an organetto is, much different now. Like it's very part of what I do. So I don't think about it. It just kind of happens. And it's nice because then when I'm performing, I don't have to worry about these things. I could more think about what's happening around me. Like, how are people reacting? It's more enjoyable at this point because, it's not so stressful. More stressful part of performances, I think, are like the technical aspects of it. These are technical things that are outside of your control, which still make you nervous. But those are more so the things I worry about when performing. But if it's just picking up the reggaeton, it's very natural.
Yeah, I think, I can relate to it as a singer. I think that it becomes almost like a confidence thing, maybe, right? It's like you're doing it for so long. And it's not that you didn't have confidence before, but it's just a different kind of confidence and experience. I think it just comes with experience, right? It's like that wisdom that you acquire over the years. And, yeah, no, I totally understand. I get it. That's pretty cool. Like we said, it's just a part of you. It's like an extension of who you are. So I love to hear this, like I said, especially because I've been watching your career for so many years, naturally being in the community together. And it's amazing. I feel very proud of where you are today. So, congrats to you. And I have to ask, Claudio, I know we've been talking about obviously music is your dolce, but is there anything else, or is it music that's your daily dolce? I ask everybody this question. What is your daily dolce?
My daily dolce, honestly, right now are my kids, because they are like at an amazing age. So my daughter is a character, and she loves to sing, and she's spontaneous, and she comes to me, she hugs me, she kisses me, she loves me with everything in her might. And for me, that's the best feeling ever. And my son's very affectionate as well. And like the things that I'm able to do with my son are amazing as well. Like for me, I think at this point in my life, the best thing, my wife is the best also. She's amazing. But right now, both of us are experiencing it. Our two kids are at such an amazing age, and they're so enjoyable. And obviously it's not that, sometimes there's tough times as well, but on the daily, that's the sweetest part of our life for sure.
I love that, and I know, yeah, they are your kids are little and that's such a special time because it really flies by too. So enjoy it as you are. But that is really nice. That's beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Claudio, for sharing your story and for, letting us have a little inside look of the beautiful career that you've grown over all these years. So it was a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.